When Princess Anne emerged, it began behind the towering doors of Clarence House, where King Charles III and Queen Camilla reportedly held a private late-night discussion so sensitive that even senior aides were quietly dismissed from the corridor. But what emerged from that meeting has now triggered whispers across palace circles about the future of coronation traditions themselves and whether centuries of royal ritual are about to be rewritten forever. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. At first, palace officials reportedly tried to dismiss the gathering as nothing more than a routine constitutional briefing, but insiders whisper that this meeting carried a very different atmosphere. According to various interpretations circulating through royal administrative circles, the conversation stretched deep into the night as constitutional advisors, ceremonial planners, and trusted palace confidants quietly arrived through private entrances normally reserved for moments of institutional crisis. The timing alone immediately raised concerns. King Charles, still navigating the physical strain of his ongoing health battle since 2024, has rarely been associated with unnecessary late-night consultations. Yet this meeting, sources suggest, was not optional. It was urgent. Reports indicate the discussion centered on the future of royal coronations and whether the centuries-old ceremony could survive in its current form during an increasingly hostile public climate. Behind palace walls, anxiety has reportedly been growing for months over the public reaction to royal spending, ceremonial grandeur, and the symbolism attached to the monarchy itself. The sun-drenched coronation of 2023 may have projected triumph and continuity to the world, but insiders now claim the financial and political fallout from that event left deep divisions within the institution. Questions about taxpayer cost, lavish processions, golden coaches, and sacred rituals reportedly unsettled even some within the firm itself. And now, according to palace administrative whispers, King Charles may be reconsidering how future coronations are conducted altogether. But the true shock did not come from Charles alone. It came from Queen Camilla's alleged role in shaping the conversation. Various interpretations of the meeting suggest Camilla H., when Princess Anne emerged, has increasingly advocated for what insiders describe as a streamlined monarchy approach, a vision focused less on spectacle and more on survival. Supporters reportedly argue that modern Britain no longer connects with the overwhelming grandeur that once defined the crown. Critics, however, fear something much larger is unfolding behind closed doors, because within the House of Windsor, traditions are not merely ceremonies. They are power. They are legitimacy. They are the sacred architecture holding together the monarchy itself. Senior courtiers are now believed to be deeply divided. Some reportedly view modernization as necessary to preserve public support during economic uncertainty, while others fear stripping away ancient rituals could permanently weaken the mystique surrounding the crown. Palace insiders describe recent internal discussions as tense, emotional, and increasingly unavoidable. One royal source allegedly described the atmosphere as inevitable, as though the monarchy has reached a crossroads it can no longer delay confronting. And perhaps most intriguing of all, speculation continues growing that Prince William may already be involved behind the scenes, quietly, monitoring discussions that could ultimately shape the monarchy he is destined to inherit. That alone has triggered enormous anxiety within royal circles. Because if William is already weighing in on the future of coronation traditions while Charles remains on the throne, then this debate may be far bigger than ceremonial reform. It may be the beginning of a silent struggle over the monarchy's next era, a battle between modernization and preservation, between survival and sacred duty. And according to insiders familiar with the palace's deeply guarded internal structure, the deeper issue was never truly about crowns, robes, or processions at all. But the debate was never simply about ceremony, it was about who controls the monarchy's future once Charles is gone. For more than 1,000 years, the coronation has stood as the sacred heartbeat of the British monarchy. From Westminster Abbey to the gold-lined anointing screens, every detail was designed to project permanence. Yet reports now suggest parts of that ancient framework may soon face the most dramatic overhaul since Queen Elizabeth II's historic 1953 ceremony. What makes these discussions so explosive is not simply the possibility. Mysan emerged, litty of change, but the realization that the monarchy may be questioning the very rituals that once guaranteed its survival. Since the days of William the Conqueror in 1066, coronations were never intended to function as ordinary ceremonies. They were declarations of divine continuity, Every oath, every procession, every ancient object carried the weight of centuries. The crown jewels, the sacred oil, the coronation chair itself, each element symbolized something larger than a family inheritance. It represented stability in times of chaos, certainty during national fear, and the illusion that the monarchy could outlive every political storm threatening the nation around it. That is precisely why the current conversations inside palace walls have reportedly left many traditionalists deeply unsettled. According to royal historians and constitutional observers, King Charles has become increasingly aware of growing public discomfort surrounding royal wealth and ceremonial extravagance during a period of economic hardship across Britain. Reports suggest aides close to the king have repeatedly warned that future coronations conducted on the same scale as previous generations could provoke anaquis, key significant backlash. The 2023 coronation may have dazzled global audiences, but palace insiders allegedly remember the criticism just as vividly as the celebration itself. Questions surrounding taxpayer costs, lavish pageantry, and displays of aristocratic privilege reportedly triggered internal concern at the highest levels of the institution. And now, as Charles continues balancing the demands of the crown with the realities of his health battle, sources claim discussions about scaling back future ceremonies have accelerated dramatically. Those discussions, however, are reportedly exposing dangerous divisions inside the royal household. Some palace advisors allegedly believe shortening future coronation events would make the monarchy appear more modern and relatable to younger generations increasingly disconnected from royal tradition. Others are said to favor reducing the role of hereditary aristocrats altogether, arguing that endless processions of dukes, earls, and ceremonial nobles no longer resonate with modern Britain. Even the deeply sacred religious symbolism tied to the coronation has quietly become part of the debate. Various interpretations of recent meetings suggest NAST officials have discussed whether future ceremonies should place less emphasis on ancient Anglican traditions in order to reflect Britain's evolving multicultural identity. But within royal circles, that idea alone reportedly triggered alarm. Because for the monarchy's defenders, removing too much symbolism risks stripping away the very mystique that keeps the institution alive. Royal historians have reportedly warned that the crown cannot survive as merely another public institution. Its power depends on sacred mystery, historical continuity, and emotional reverence. Once those elements disappear, critics fear the monarchy could slowly begin losing the invisible authority that separates it from ordinary political structures. Palace insiders now describe two growing camps emerging behind closed doors: the modernizers, who believe reform is essential for survival, and the traditionalists, who fear modernization could become irreversible surrender. And as these tensions intensify, whispers continue spreading through royal administrative circles that the conflict is no longer purely theoretical. Because according to various interpretations of private palace discussions, Queen C. may not simply support these reforms, she may be quietly helping shape them from behind the scenes. And according to whispers from inside royal circles, Queen Camilla may be playing a far greater role in these reforms than many expected. Once viewed as the monarchy's most controversial outsider, Queen Camilla now reportedly sits at the center of one of the crown's most sensitive internal battles. Palace administrative whispers suggest her influence over Charles has quietly expanded. In recent years, especially as the king's health struggles continue behind closed doors. For decades, Camilla existed on the edge of royal acceptance, tolerated by some, resented by others, and forever linked to one of the monarchy's most painful public scandals. Yet time, persistence, and circumstance appear to have transformed her position inside the House of Windsor in ways few could have predicted. According to various interpretations circulating among palace insiders, Queen Camilla has gradually evolved from controversial consort into one of the most influential voices shaping the monarchy's future. And it is precisely that transformation which now has parts of the royal establishment deeply uneasy. Reports suggest Camilla strongly favors what supporters describe as a more practical and sustainable monarchy, one less dependent on overwhelming displays of ceremonial grandeur and more focused on efficiency, stability, and public survival. Advisors allegedly close to her inner circle have quietly pushed for reducing certain royal traditions that critics increasingly view as outdated or financially excessive. To some within the palace, these conversations are necessary and long overdue. Britain has changed. Public patience has changed. The monarchy, they argue, must evolve or risk becoming disconnected from the very people it claims to serve. But inside the firm, evolution and erosion are often separated by a dangerously thin line. Critics within royal circles reportedly fear that Camilla's growing influence extends beyond modernization and into something far more profound, a gradual reshaping of royal identity itself. Palace whispers suggest some senior traditionalists privately believe the monarchy is drifting away from the sacred constitutional mystique carefully preserved during Queen Elizabeth II's 70-year reign. Comparisons have even emerged between the current IC tensions and the quiet institutional battles that reportedly unfolded during Elizabeth's final years, when concerns over modernization, public image, and family scandal increasingly collided behind palace walls. Back then, however, Elizabeth herself remained the immovable center of authority. Now, according to insiders, the situation feels different, because as Charles continues facing the physical and emotional exhaustion tied to his cancer treatment since early 2024, sources claim he has become increasingly reliant on Camilla not only emotionally, but institutionally. Palace administrative streams suggest she now plays a far more active role in private consultations, scheduling influence, ceremonial planning discussions, and internal mediation than the public fully understands. Some insiders reportedly view her presence as stabilizing during one of the monarchy's most fragile periods in modern history. Others see a dangerous concentration of influence forming around someone many traditionalists never fully accepted into the royal fold to begin with. That distrust has reportedly intensified as debates surrounding coronation reforms continue escalating behind closed doors. Source: familiar with the palace's old guard claims certain senior figures fear the monarchy is slowly abandoning what they describe as the sacred geography of royal ritual, the ancient choreography of symbolism, hierarchy, and divine continuity that once separated the crown from ordinary public institutions. To those defenders of tradition, coronations were never designed for convenience. They were designed to overwhelm, to inspire, to remind the nation that the monarchy stood above politics, above trends, and above temporary public moods. Reducing those traditions, critics argue, risks dismantling the emotional architecture that has protected the institution for centuries. And according to insiders, these disagreements are no longer theoretical debates confined to ceremonial committees. They have evolved into subtle but increasingly visible internal power struggles, with factions quietly forming around competing visions for the monarchy's future. Because while Camilla's supporters defend the changes as necessary modernization, others inside the firm reportedly see something far more dangerous unfolding. Behind the polished palace smiles and carefully choreographed appearances, report, "My sagest, Prince William has become increasingly protective of the monarchy's oldest traditions, and insiders whisper that recent discussions over coronation reforms may have triggered a quiet but unmistakable divide between generations inside the House of Windsor." For years, William was portrayed as the monarchy's modern face, younger, more relatable, more in tune with a changing Britain than the generations before him. But according to various interpretations emerging from palace circles, the Prince of Wales may now be moving in a far more cautious direction than many expected. Sources familiar with internal royal discussions claim William has grown deeply concerned. That excessive modernization could weaken the very foundations that keep the monarchy alive. To him, tradition is not decorative. It is protection. It is legitimacy. It is the invisible shield that transforms the crown from a celebrity institution into something ancient, untouchable, and emotionally permanent. That belief reportedly intensified after the turbulence surrounding the 2023 coronation. While the event projected grandeur and continuity to millions watching around the world, palace insiders suggest William affably observed something far more unsettling beneath the surface. Public criticism over royal privilege, taxpayer spending, and ceremonial excess exposed just how fragile public support could become under pressure. Yet according to sources close to the future king, William did not interpret that backlash as a reason to abandon tradition. Instead, he allegedly saw it as proof that the monarchy must defend its sacred symbolism more carefully than ever before. Because once rituals begin disappearing, insiders claim William fears the crown risks becoming ordinary, and in royal history, ordinary institutions rarely survive for long. That growing anxiety reportedly explains why recent discussions about shortening future coronation ceremonies or reducing sacred ceremonial elements have caused such unease among traditionalists inside the palace. Senior aides allegedly warned that watering down coronation rituals could permanently damage public reverence for the institution. Some insiders now believe the monarchy faces a dangerous balancing act between appearing modern enough to satisfy public expectations while still remaining mysterious enough to command emotional loyalty. And with Massey in those debates, the shadow of Queen Elizabeth II reportedly looms larger than ever. Sources claim William frequently references his grandmother's unwavering devotion to royal ritual as the model that preserved stability during decades of political turmoil, family scandals, and social transformation. Elizabeth understood, according to palace insiders, that the monarchy's survival depended not only on duty, but on theater, symbolism, and continuity. Every public appearance, every ceremonial gesture, every carefully preserved tradition reinforced the idea that the crown belonged to history itself, rather than temporary public opinion. William reportedly believes dismantling too much of that structure would create consequences impossible to reverse. And increasingly, he may not be alone. Princess Anne, long regarded as one of the monarchy's most disciplined defenders, is also rumored to support preserving the constitutional symbolism attached to royal ceremonies. Palace administrative whispers suggest Anne views coronation rituals as part of a sacred institutional covenant stretching back centuries, one that cannot simply be redesigned according to modern political convenience. Her influence inside royal operations remains enormous despite her low public profile, and according to various interpretations of recent meetings, Anne has quietly become one of the strongest voices resisting dramatic ceremonial reform. As a result, the monarchy now appears caught between two competing survival strategies. One faction believes efficiency and modernization are essential for maintaining public support in an increasingly skeptical Britain. The other fears that reducing ancient rituals may slowly hollow out the crown from within until its authority becomes symbolic in the weakest possible sense. Palace courtiers reportedly describe growing internal divisions, subtle rivalries, and carefully managed tensions between camps loyal to continuity and those pushing for transformation. Yet beneath all the ceremonial arguments and constitutional debates, insiders suggest an even heavier reality hangs over every private conversation taking place behind palace walls. Yet the deeper issue was not merely tradition versus modernization, it was the looming question no palace insider could openly ignore. Since early 2024, King Charles III's health battle has cast a long shadow over the Maranwan, Archie, and according to various interpretations of recent palace meetings, the urgency surrounding future coronation planning may reveal a royal institution quietly preparing for an uncertain future far sooner than the public realizes. At first, the palace attempted to project calm. Public appearances continued. Carefully measured statements reassured the nation. Royal aides worked tirelessly to preserve the image of continuity that has always protected the House of Windsor during moments of uncertainty. But behind closed doors, insiders whisper that Charles's cancer diagnosis triggered something far more profound than temporary concern. It accelerated conversations the monarchy had hoped it would not need to confront for many years. And according to sources familiar with the palace's deeply guarded internal operations, those discussions have grown increasingly serious with every passing month. Reports suggest succession planning teams quietly intensified preparations almost immediately after the king's diagnosis became public. Constitutional advisors, ceremonial officials, and senior royal administrators allegedly began reviewing what insiders describe as multiple transition frame. Works complex logistical scenarios designed to preserve institutional stability should Charles's condition worsen unexpectedly. Palace administrative streams claim the atmosphere surrounding these preparations has been deeply emotional, even among veteran royal staff accustomed to crisis management. Because unlike previous royal transitions, this moment carries a unique sense of fragility. Charles waited more than 70 years to inherit the crown, only to begin his reign under the relentless pressure of illness, public scrutiny, and an institution struggling to redefine itself in real time. That emotional weight reportedly hangs over every discussion now taking place inside royal circles, particularly conversations surrounding future coronations. Sources claim officials are no longer debating reform as a distant theoretical possibility. Instead, they are reportedly confronting practical realities about what Britain may or may not accept in the years ahead. Concerns over public appetite for another massive coronation ceremony have quietly intensified, especially during ongoing economic instability and growing criticism surrounding royal privilege. Palace insiders allegedly feature are that attempting to recreate the scale and grandeur of the 2023 coronation under future circumstances could provoke a deeply divided national reaction. Yet abandoning those traditions carries risks of its own risks many inside the monarchy find equally terrifying. Because for all the pressure to modernize, continuity remains the crown's greatest weapon. And according to various interpretations emerging from within the palace, Prince William has increasingly become the figure many now view as the institution's emotional anchor for the future. While Charles navigates the physical and emotional toll of his illness, insiders claim William has quietly assumed a larger stabilizing role behind the scenes. Courtiers reportedly see him as the bridge between ancient royal tradition and a younger generation increasingly skeptical of inherited power. That growing responsibility, however, comes with immense pressure. Every decision William makes now is reportedly viewed through the lens of the reign he may inherit sooner than anyone once expected. At the same time, sources suggest Queen Camilla remains intensely focused on protecting Charles's legacy during this uncertain transition period. Mass supporters reportedly believe her involvement in coronation reform discussions stems not from ambition, but from a desire to shield the monarchy and Charles himself from future instability. Critics, however, continue questioning whether those reforms risk permanently altering the institution in ways future generations may regret. And caught between those competing visions are the courtiers, advisors, and senior royal officials allegedly preparing for every possible constitutional outcome behind closed doors. Some insiders now describe the emotional strain inside the royal household as immense. The uncertainty surrounding Charles's health, the quiet succession planning, the internal disagreements over modernization, and the growing awareness that another royal transition may arrive far sooner than expected have reportedly created an atmosphere of quiet tension throughout the institution. Yet despite all the planning, all the private consultations, and all the carefully guarded preparations, one truth remains impossible to fully control. And as those preparations continue behind palace walls, one final question now hangs over the crown itself. What if the next coronation no longer resembles the glittering spectacle witnessed in 2023? Palace whispers now suggest the monarchy could be moving toward a leaner, quieter, and far more controlled ceremony, one designed not for imperial grandeur, but for survival in a rapidly changing Britain. For centuries, coronations were crafted to overwhelm the public imagination. They were never intended to feel modest. Every jewel, every trumpet, every ancient ritual served a single purpose: to convince the nation that the crown stood above ordinary life, untouched by political chaos or public uncertainty. But according to various interpretations of recent palace discussions, the monarchy may now be confronting a reality that previous generations never fully faced: the possibility that excessive grandeur could become politically dangerous in modern Britain. And if those concerns continue shaping internal planning, the next coronation could look radically different from anything seen before. Reports suggest officials have quietly discussed shortening future ceremonies to reduce costs, simplify logistics, and avoid accusations of extravagance during periods of economic hardship. Sources familiar with internal conversations Massers believe lengthy processions, elaborate aristocratic displays, and multi-day celebrations no longer resonate with younger generations struggling through financial uncertainty. Instead, insiders whisper that future coronations may place greater emphasis on national unity, public service, and emotional connection rather than overwhelming royal spectacle. To supporters of reform, this is not surrender, it is survival. They argue the monarchy must evolve carefully if it hopes to remain relevant in a society increasingly skeptical of inherited privilege and ceremonial excess. Yet even among those advocating modernization, there appears to be deep anxiety about how far those changes should go. Palace administrative whispers suggest discussions have extended beyond ceremonial logistics and into the sacred religious framework of the coronation itself. Questions surrounding the role of the Church of England, interfaith representation, and the symbolism of divine authority are reportedly being reviewed with extraordinary caution. Britain today is vastly different from the country that witnessed Queen Elizabeth II's coronation in 1953, and some insiders allegedly believe feudal emerged. Ceremonies must reflect that transformation to preserve public legitimacy. But within royal circles, altering religious symbolism is considered one of the most sensitive subjects imaginable. Because the monarchy's power has never rested entirely on politics. It rests on mythology. The sacred atmosphere surrounding coronations, the ancient oaths, the anointing rituals hidden from public view. The centuries-old choreography of continuity creates the emotional illusion that the crown belongs to something eternal rather than temporary public opinion. Royal historians reportedly warn that abandoning too much of that symbolism could weaken the institution in ways no public relations strategy could repair. Once sacred mystery disappears, they argue, the monarchy risks becoming little more than ceremonial celebrity wrapped in constitutional language. At the same time, insiders claim modern media realities are now influencing royal planning more than ever before. Global digital broadcasting, online scrutiny, viral criticism, and shifting public narratives have transformed how royal ceremonies are consumed around the world. According to various palace interpretations, future coronations may be designed as much for international optics and social media audiences as for those physically attending Westminster Abbey itself. Every image, every moment, every symbolic gesture is now expected to survive instant global judgment. And no future royal will face that pressure more intensely than Prince William. Sources suggest William's eventual coronation is already viewed internally as one of the most critical moments for the monarchy's future survival. Expectations surrounding him remain enormous. He is seen by many as the bridge between tradition and modernity, stability and reform. But that balance may prove almost impossible to maintain. Because while some advisors believe the monarchy must appear leaner and more relatable to survive, others fear that stripping away too much grandeur may quietly destroy the emotional magic that has protected the institution for generations. But even as the institution adapts, some insiders fear the monarchy may be sacrificing part of its soul in the process. The greatest threat to the monarchy may not come from protesters, politicians, or public criticism, but from the quiet fractures forming within the palace itself. Because according to multiple royal insiders, the battle over coronation traditions has exposed a much deeper struggle over what the monarchy should become in the 21st century. For generations, the House of Windsor survived by presenting a united front to the world. No matter how fierce the private disagreements became behind palace walls, the institution understood the importance of appearing immovable in public. Stability was the monarchy's greatest weapon. Silence was its shield. But insiders now claim that beneath the carefully controlled appearances and disciplined public statements, tensions surrounding the future of the crown have been quietly escalating for months. And unlike previous royal disagreements centered around personalities or scandals, this conflict cuts far deeper. It strikes at the monarchy's very identity. Traditionalists inside the royal establishment reportedly fear the institution is drifting toward a dangerous point of no return. According to palace administrative whispers, some senior courtiers believe reducing coronation symbolism, shortening sacred ceremonies, and reshaping royal rituals could slowly erode the emotional mystique that has protected the crown for centuries. Tories. To them, the monarchy survives precisely because it feels ancient, untouchable, and larger than ordinary political life. Remove too much ceremony, they argue, and the institution risks appearing fragile, transactional, and painfully ordinary. And in today's media environment, where public respect can disappear almost overnight, that possibility reportedly terrifies many within the old guard. But modernizers see the situation very differently. Sources familiar with internal palace discussions claim reform-minded advisors increasingly believe survival depends on adaptation, not preservation alone. Britain has changed. Public expectations have changed. Economic pressures, political skepticism, and generational attitudes toward inherited privilege have transformed the environment the monarchy operates within. To these insiders, refusing to modernize could ultimately prove even more dangerous than reform itself. They argue the crown cannot demand reverence simply because history says it should. It must continuously justify its existence to a public growing more impatient with wealth, hierarchy, and excessive symbolism. Those competing visions have reportedly triggered what some palace insiders now describe as a form of quiet bureaucratic warfare unfolding behind closed doors. Courtiers aligned with traditional protocol allegedly push back against proposals viewed as excessive modernization, while reform-focused advisors continue advocating for efficiency, cost reduction, and broader public relatability. Meetings surrounding future ceremonial planning have reportedly grown increasingly tense, with subtle power struggles emerging between rival factions inside the institution. And according to various interpretations of those discussions, certain senior royals themselves are becoming increasingly associated with opposing sides of the debate. Princess Anne and Prince William, in particular, are frequently linked by insiders to efforts aimed at preserving historic protocol and constitutional symbolism. Both reportedly believe that tradition provides the monarchy with emotional authority that cannot easily be replaced once lost. Anne, long respected for her fierce dedication to duty, is said to view ceremonial continuity as essential to preserving institutional discipline. William, meanwhile, allegedly fears the monarchy could unintentionally weaken itself by rendering too much of its sacred identity in pursuit of short-term public approval. Yet standing opposite that philosophy are advisors and allies reportedly connected to Queen Camilla, many of whom continue pushing for a more practical and streamlined monarchy capable of surviving modern political realities. Media insiders claim these tensions have quietly intensified as public support becomes increasingly tied to perceptions of value, relevance, and restraint. Every royal decision now unfolds beneath relentless public scrutiny. Every ceremony is measured against economic hardship. Every symbol is questioned. And caught directly between those competing pressures stands King Charles himself, a monarch reportedly torn between protecting centuries of royal legacy and confronting the uncomfortable reality that the institution may need to evolve to survive. And in the end, the outcome of this invisible royal battle may shape the monarchy for generations to come. As the lights dim across Buckingham Palace and the old generation of royals slowly fades into history, the British monarchy now faces perhaps its greatest modern dilemma: preserve the ancient rituals that built the crown, or reinvent itself before the public turns away forever. For all the grandeur surrounding the monarchy, the reality facing the House of Windsor today is deeply uncertain. King Charles III began his reign carrying the weight of history on his shoulders, yet according to palace insiders, that reign has increasingly become defined not by triumph, but by transition. Illness, internal divisions, public skepticism, and growing debates over modernization have transformed what was once expected to be a stable new royal era into something far more fragile. Behind the palace gates, whispers of constitutional planning, succession strategy, and ceremonial reform now move through royal corridors with growing urgency. And at the center of it all stands a monarchy struggling to answer the one question it can no longer avoid: what must change for the crown to survive, and what can never be touched without risking everything? Because coronation traditions were never merely performances for public celebration. They represented continuity stretching across centuries of British history. Every ancient ritual connected one sovereign to the next through an unbroken chain of symbolism, sacrifice, and duty. For modern monarchs, the coronation served as the moment the institution renewed its sacred promise to the nation. That emotional power is what transformed the monarchy from an ordinary family into something almost mythological. Yet now, according to various interpretations emerging from inside palace circles, even those sacred foundations are being quietly reconsidered in ways that once would have been unthinkable. Prince William is expected to inherit not only the crown itself, but also the title of Prince of Wales, but also the enormous burden of protecting an institution many insiders believe has entered one of the most vulnerable periods in modern royal history. Public attitudes have changed dramatically. Younger generations question inherited privilege more openly than ever before. Economic hardship continues to fuel resentment toward displays of royal wealth and ceremony. Social media scrutiny has shattered the protective distance the monarchy once relied upon to preserve mystique. And as debates surrounding relevance versus sacred heritage intensify behind closed doors, insiders claim William increasingly understands that his future reign may determine whether the monarchy evolves successfully. ICR slowly loses the emotional authority that has sustained it for generations. Throughout all these tensions, the shadow of Queen Elizabeth II still looms over every royal discussion. Her reign represented continuity, discipline, and an almost unshakable sense of institutional permanence. Even critics of the monarchy often respected the stability she embodied. Palace insiders reportedly admit that much of today's internal anxiety stems from an awareness that Elizabeth's extraordinary presence can never truly be replicated. Charles inherited the crown during an age of uncertainty. William may inherit it during an age of open skepticism. and that reality has reportedly intensified fears surrounding every conversation about reform, modernization, and ceremonial change. Meanwhile, Queen Camilla's role continues generating deep division among royal traditionalists. Supporters argue she has helped stabilize Charles during one of the most difficult periods of his life and reign. Critics, however, remain deeply suspicious of the growing influence her faction appears to hold over discussions surrounding the monarchy's future direction. To some insiders, she represents necessary modernization. Mayade asked, she symbolizes the gradual dismantling of traditions once considered untouchable. And perhaps that is why the internal battle unfolding behind palace walls feels so emotionally charged, because this is no longer simply a debate about ceremonies, processions, or public image. It is a battle over identity itself. Palace insiders now warn that the decisions made during this period could permanently redefine the monarchy for generations to come. Every reform carries consequences. Every tradition abandoned may weaken a connection to the past that can never fully be restored. Yet refusing to evolve could prove equally dangerous in a rapidly changing society. That impossible balancing act now defines the future of the crown itself, a centuries-old institution trapped between survival and preservation, adaptation and legacy, modern relevance and sacred continuity. Because in the House of Windsor, traditions are never just ceremonies, they are the invisible threads holding the monarchy itself together. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.